Hi, everyone. This is Kelly coming as I'm editing and putting this episode together. There are two things that I forgot to mention at the beginning of the episode, so I'm going to mention them now. One, I forgot to say the Stop the Scroll challenge that I did back in the spring that was live. I made a version that's like evergreen now, so you can join anytime you want. I'll put the link in the show notes. So that's 5 days to help you reduce your screen time and reclaim your attention span. The other thing is at the beginning of this episode, I talk about a death in the family that I experienced and how that experience made me just kind of take a step back from work for a couple of months, and how it kind of set up this episode as to like what I did totally different this summer and why. If you do not feel like you are in a headspace to listen about a loss, then fast forward. So it will be around 17 minutes. I want to say 17:30 would be the timestamp as to when you could fast forward and skip that part and then just get right into what I did this summer and what I rank it out of 10 and some lessons that I learned. Okay, here's the episode. Also, I just want you to know that I appreciate you. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Mindful in Minutes podcast. Today, I thought that we could just kind of relax, catch up, hang out a little bit, talk about summer, talk about what's been going on the last few months, and like some lessons learned. So if you're here to learn some big, like deep, profound life lesson or meditation technique, you're probably not going to find it here. I don't know. Maybe you'll find something that will resonate with you, but we are not going to be talking about meditation. So if you are only here for the meditation, you know what? Maybe I'll just see you on Sunday for a meditation. We're going to do a release tension meditation, which I'm really excited about. But today we're just really going to be talking about, just doing a personal episode and getting caught up. And I want to share some things that I've been reflecting on, some lessons that I've learned recently. And I'm also going to go through and talk about the different things that I did this summer and rate them from 1 to 10. I've been doing a lot of kind of different things out there, and I've also been doing a lot of thinking this summer. So that's what we're doing. And we're just going to dive in. I think every time that I say, I don't know how long this episode is going to be, I feel like it's always a long one. So I'm not even going to say that. We're just going to chat and just get caught up. This is definitely a very personal episode. But So that is that. It's a little bit different, but I thought, you know what? Like, I remember going back to school and you'd be like, oh, what did you do this summer? Like, what's your favorite thing that you did this summer? And I always just loved hearing like what people were up to. I still love hearing about what people are up to. So I thought I'd share kind of what I've been up to. So this summer, I did something a little bit different, and I actually took the majority of June and July off, or like 90% off. I did the things that I do every month. Like I still did office hours for people in like teacher trainings. I did one event in person, and then like, of course, like if people needed like customer support, like email customer support type things, I did that, but I only did the things that like were necessary. So I really wanted to spend time with the kids. And after the rollout of Yoga Nidra teacher training and then the Scotland retreat in May, I thought I just kind of want to let the dust settle and just kind of reset, sit and be. And I feel so grateful, so grateful. When I was just kind of going through, basically what I did was I just went through like my camera roll, remembering all of the like different things that I did this summer. And I just was feeling this immense gratitude that I have a career and a business that allows me to do this. I really worked ahead on the podcast, and in May, and then at the very beginning of June, I kind of worked ahead and created a handful of the meditations that you heard, and then kind of scheduled them to release. And then some of the guest episodes, like with Alyssa and Cassie, recorded that a little bit early. And so I just had this immense gratitude that I'm able to do that, because I know so many people aren't able to just be like, you know what I'd like to do? I really need some time to sit and be. So I'm going to just work ahead so I can take some time off. But I feel really grateful for that. So I wanted to, call that out. And so, like I said, I just kind of went through my camera roll on my phone and looked at what we did and then rated it out of 10. So no facts here, no learning, no science, just fun and catching up. And I think that maybe we should start with what I was thinking about this summer, because there is a lot and there's a reason that I decided to take 2 months off. So if you listen to the guest episode that I did with Cassie Yule about grief and death and dying, which I think is I love all the episodes that I've done, but that one I think is really interesting because it's a topic that I get asked about a lot, specifically like grief and people asking me to do meditations and things when you're grieving or after you've lost someone, they've passed. And I felt like I just couldn't do that alone and I needed Cassie's help. And I think it's a really interesting episode. And people asked if it's like super dark or super heavy. And I don't necessarily think it is. I mean, obviously we're talking about like grief and death and dying. So like, yes, there is like a heavy element. But I feel like we did a little bit of a kind of more of like a positive spin. What are some ways that you can care for yourself in that time? So I've had that question come up a few times. So I don't think it's like super, super heavy all the time, but yeah, that's that. And then you also heard me mention that this spring I did lose a close family member. We'll call her a cousin. That's what I always called her. We're not like necessarily, maybe we were like second cousins. It was one of those family members, where you just like call them your cousin, but you're like, how are we acting? Who's really, you know what I'm talking about. I feel like a lot of us have a family member where you just call them cousin or like aunt whoever, but then you're like, how are we actually related? So I'm pretty sure we were second cousins, but I just called her my cousin. And so that's what I'll refer to her as. And she did pass away. And this is probably going to be like the first, and I guess not the first. I talked about it in the other episode. I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. I feel like a little bit nervous to talk about it just because it's like a hard thing to talk about. And I usually keep my family stuff private, but I do feel comfortable sharing this because she was a member of the Mindful Minutes community and something that we actually reconnected a lot over the last few years during her. So she had cancer. So during her kind of journey, and she also had an Instagram account where she was kind of documenting her journey. So I feel comfortable sharing this because she had shared this publicly in her words before, and she was a part of this community. And you can probably hear it in my voice, but this one just hit me pretty hard. But I feel okay sharing this because it really was the catalyst for me being like, okay, I think I'm going to just be and sit for a couple of months. Okay, so carrying on, someone once told me that when you are having like big feelings and having to talk, that you're supposed to do like math in your head and it like helps you to keep it together because you're trying to like do a logical math problem. And usually I would say that works, but also it's really hard to talk and try to do math at the same time. And I think I'm a little bit better at math than I am at spelling, but anyway, so maybe I'll do like some little math things in my head, but I wanted to share that in case anyone has to give like, I don't know, a speech or like a eulogy or something. And they say if you do math problems in your head at the same time, that it helps you kind of like get it together. But I'm not that good at math and it's hard to talk and do math at the same time. Okay. Anyways, that was my tangent. So she and I had reconnected over this podcast a few years back after her cancer diagnosis, and we had a really shared love for like meditation and mindfulness and like crystals and things like that. And she was a mother as well. And we weren't as close when we were younger, but then it was just kind of this nice thing that like we reconnected and shared. And, she would, text me or whatever and be like, hey, I loved, the episode that you did, or I loved this meditation, or I fell asleep listening to you last night. Or we just kind of talk about, that stuff. And it just, I don't know, it's just special and really cool to have like a friend and a family member where we had this shared experience. And one of the reasons that I started Mindful Minutes, or that it's so important to me, is that I know that for a lot of people, they turn to meditation when they're having a hard time. And, when life isn't like, no one turns to meditation when they're like, everything's going so well. It's amazing. I'm in the best mood ever. My health is incredible. Nothing's wrong. You know what I should do? I should start a meditation practice. It's usually when we're going through a hard time or we're like, oh, things are just not going well. I'm not doing well. Maybe I should try meditating. And I've heard from a lot of you when you say like, I picked up this podcast like after a breakup or when my anxiety was really bad or when I was going through a health situation or whatever it is, so many things. And I hold that in my heart so closely. It's also the reason that I turned to meditation. Like when my mom had cancer, I didn't know what I was doing was meditating, but I was out there, looking for different resources and things to help care for myself so then I could care for someone else. And I get it. And so it's something that's really important to me. And it's why I just want to do this podcast like for forever. I think that meditation and mindfulness and even like talking about things, heart-centered things can be really helpful and important and like healing in a way. Not that I'm the one doing the healing, but I really want to put things out there that can help support people on their best days and their worst days and everything in between. So it was really special to me that like she would also use mindful minutes as one of the tools that she had during this time. And I think one of the things, and this is one of the biggest lessons that I learned, but I think one of the biggest things that hit me was that this is where I'm going to have to do the math in my head. She really wanted to go to Iceland really badly, and she never made it. One of the last text messages that we had shared before her passing was just a couple months before, and we were talking back and forth because she was hoping to actually take a trip to Iceland, and then things ended up kind of taking a turn for the worst. And we were talking about, I was sending all these recommendations. I was like, oh my gosh, you could do this or you could do this. And we were just talking back and forth, having this whole kind of conversation about, this trip, kind of this, last hurrah, like maybe like truly like a bucket list trip. And we were talking about that, and she never made it to Iceland. And she'd actually really hoped to go on the Iceland retreat that I did almost a year ago. So, and it wasn't doable. Her doctors didn't okay that. So then she was going to go later, and, whatever. This part isn't necessarily relevant in that, this is her stuff, but we talked a lot about Iceland together, and she never made it. And I get to go all the time, both personally and professionally. And I think this is one of the, other than like, she was a mom and, she has a child younger than pork chop, and that's a whole separate, just like mom heart thing that just like shattered in me watching this. But something that I thought about a lot is what is something, and maybe something that like, if you want to think about it too, because it really opened my eyes and like opened up a lot of gratitude in me, but like, what is something that you get to do all the time that's, big or small, not necessarily just like going to Iceland, like personally and professionally, but like what's something that you get to do that would be someone's like dream thing to do? And you get to do it all the time. We all have something. It could be anything, right? Like, I know there's people out there who dream of like being a parent, and that hasn't happened for them or won't happen to them. And I get to do that like every single day. Or, people who dream of owning a home, and like, I have a home. And even though sometimes crazy things happen with it, spoiler alert, I found this crazy thing in my house. I rated that one a 0 out of 10. I'll get there, but like something weird in our furnace happened this summer. 0 out of 10 rating for that one. But like, I know there's people who dream of owning a home. And even though I have like a really old tiny house that like breaks a lot, like I have one, or like going to Iceland. And this experience, and it just really made me think about like, what are the things that I get to do, or that we get to do every day that is someone's like dream to even do once. And that was such a profound thing that I sat with a lot in quiet contemplation that really just, changed things for me. So that was something that really hit me hard, a few things. And, she was younger than me. Like I said, she had a child who was younger than pork chop. She died of cancer, and it just wasn't right. Sometimes like death and loss never necessarily feels good, I guess. But, some of them just like don't feel right. And you're like, what the heck? Like this, it just wasn't right. And it really hit me. So as you can tell, probably from my voice, we're almost on the sad part, and then we'll get into the fun summer catching up. But I share all this because I don't usually, with the exception of like maternity leaves, I love what I do so much. And I love like every week sitting down and like creating a podcast episode and recording it and all of that. But like, I was just like, okay, I really just need some time to like be and sit and reflect and like just be with the kids. So I did. And I think anytime you go through a loss, it really just makes you think about a lot. And I did a lot of, stopping, reflecting for a lot of reasons. But mostly it just made me think about like, what would I do in that situation? Or like, what would I do differently in my life? Or if I knew I had a finite amount of time on earth with my kids, all of that, like, what would I do? Would I do things differently? What do I want to do like in the now and not put off and all that? And I would say the thing that really came up for me, one of the big things was that I just wanted to do like more random things, say yes and do more. A memory that I have, a lot of memories that I have from my childhood, because my mom was a teacher. So like in the summers, we would, she would also be off for the majority of the summer, the bulk of it. Believe me, teachers, I know you don't get like the whole summer off. But we would just do like truly the most like random things. We'd be like, oh, we're going to, and this was when, back in the day, like in the 90s, early 2000s. And I'm sure my mom just saw something in like the newspaper and was like, oh, there's a one-room schoolhouse doing butter churning today. Let's go do that. And so we would just go and drive to like the most random place or be like, we're going to the Laura Ingalls Wilder house. And half the time I didn't even know like what was going on or what we were doing. But I just have these really fond memories of going and doing. And some of them I like hated, but I still look back on it kind of fondly. Like the one-room schoolhouse, I remember being like, what are we doing here? This is so boring. It's like hot. There's no air conditioning. I don't know, whatever. I think back and it's like, I hated it, but also like it was really cool. And we just did so many random things. So I was like, okay, I just want to do random things this summer. I want to give my kids like memories like this. And that's really what I did in, I would say May through July and maybe into, I don't know, I kind of rolled back into work a little bit this month in August. And it really just reminded me that even on like the hardest day with my kids or like the hardest days in life with family things and just, life stuff that goes on, it was just a reminder that like I'm still here to witness the hardest days and like I'm grateful for that. Even on like the really hard days, like on the days where it's just like, because you'll hear in some of these things we ranked, I take a few points off for like the kids bickering or like, running off in different directions or like nearly giving me a heart attack, things like that. But it's like I'm still there and like alive to witness it. And so I just wanted to kind of do random things and all of that sitting and thinking, I just wanted to share. So we're done with the sad, I think, and we're getting into kind of the silly. I wanted to share some of those random things that I have done. And this summer, and we're actually going to start in May because I started really doing this in May. And yeah, we're going to do that. And then at the end, there are just a couple of things I've been sitting and reflecting on, the lessons learned that I wanted to share. So thank you for listening to all of that. I'm wondering if maybe I'll put well, I guess it's too late to say it now. I was going to say I could put in the show notes like when the sad part is over, but I probably should have said that at the beginning of the episode. So yeah. All right, getting into things that I did. We're going to start in May because I did do a few things. First thing, cold plunging into a Scottish lake, a loch, on retreat. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. I'll tell you why. I don't love water. I don't like cold plunges. This lake was like it was Loch Tay. I'm sure all my Scottish listeners are like, please stop saying that. It was kind of spongy to walk on, which honestly like felt kind of weird on the feet. And I was like, why is it so spongy? So usually I would give something like this a very low rating. However, the fact that I'm just knocking the 4 points off because I don't really like water. I don't really like lakes. I don't really like cold water and cold plunges and it was kind of spongy on the feet and that felt a little weird to me. However, I love doing this with retreaters and my cousin absolutely, she really wanted to go on a retreat. She didn't make it. She absolutely would have been in that water. So I could get my butt in that water too. And it was so cold. We had so much fun. We laughed really hard. Anyone listening who was at that retreat, when you guys were like holding hands and be like, okay, we're going to dunk for 3 seconds. You guys would like hold hands and then like dunk for 3 seconds. And everyone was just like cheering. It was just really fun. So lighthearted, like just so silly and like pure at the same time. So I'm giving it a 6 out of 10, 10 out of 10 for like the fun and the laughter, but I am knocking off a couple of points because like it was cold. I'm not a big like get in the lake person. And then that spongy texture kind of like threw me off a little bit. Then getting my ears pierced. I'm pretty sure I said this, or maybe Daniela and I just talked about it in our episode, I got my very first piercing at the age of 34 in Edinburgh, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So I might post the video on Instagram. In fact, I think maybe what I'll do is I think I'm going to do like a carousel where I'm going to share like pictures from all of these random things, maybe in like a carousel. So if you want to see the pictures of the visuals, I'll post it on Instagram on Wednesday. But maybe I'll share this video. Daniela has them, but it's so funny. It's just like the journey of like getting my ears pierced. And we were in the city. It was like the city day for the retreat. And we went to Dishoom, which is like one of my favorite restaurants. And the gals had been drinking a little bit, and when there's like women on a mission, like literally nothing will stop them. And so I was like, should I be brave and get my ears pierced? My first tiny little baby, like first little earlobe piercing. And everyone was like, absolutely, yes, you should do that. So then I went online, and I've never done this before. So I was like, oh, I need like an appointment and whatever. So I made this appointment, and it was like 20 minutes from now. And we were just getting the check. So it was like 20 minutes from now. And everyone was just like hyping me up so much. I was like, okay, we're going to do it. And then we went and we got like a little lost. Then I was like 5 minutes late to my appointment. And then she was like, we have I think she was just annoyed at us and didn't want to like pierce my ears, which is like, I don't know, kind of reasonable. She was like, we have a 9-minute grace period. I was like, great, I'm only 5 minutes late. And then she kept being like, no, we have a 9-minute grace period. Like, I can't pierce your ears. And I was like, but it's only been 5 minutes. And I don't know. So that was a bust. So then we just like took to the streets of Edinburgh and started walking to and I'm like, there is a lot. If you want to get something pierced or a tattoo, like just every block, I feel like there was one. So we just started walking. We were like on Google Maps, and we're just like any place we're walking in, and like, can you pierce my ears? Then finally, I want to say it's like the 4th place I went in, and like we come in, there was like 6 of us, and we all like, we're like, can you pierce? They were like, can you pierce her ears? She needs a piercing. And they were like, okay, my next appointment's in 10 minutes. So if you do it now, I can do it. And I was like, great. And they're like, sign the waiver. And I'm like signing it. And then like the ladies were like picking out my earrings, and then Daniela was going to come back. She's like, can I come back and videotape it? They're like, no, you can't come back. So then I go back and I sit in the chair, and the sweetest woman, Sarah, she was like, are you being pressured into doing this? Like, do you actually want to do this? She was so sweet. She thought I was being like peer pressured into getting my ears pierced. And I was like, no, they're not peer pressuring me. Like, they're just hyping me up, and I feel embarrassed to do this alone. So like, they're here with me, but I really want to do it. And she was like, okay. And oh my gosh, I was so surprised. She like did the thing. It wasn't like a gun. It was like she just like took this needle and like just like jabbed it into my ear with so much force. I guess I didn't think it would need that much force. That kind of surprised me. And then, I got it done. It took like 5 minutes. Sarah was just like so great. And this is what I have to post a video of. But when I walked out from the back with my they gave me little earrings that they give like little infants when they get their ears pierced, because that's whatever. That's what you get. And oh my gosh, the applause that I got when I walked out with these tiny little infant earrings, and everyone else in the waiting room was just like looking at me like, what's happening? We absolutely were being those like loud, like wacko like Americans. Although, I mean, one of us was Canadians. We weren't all Americans. But Daniela representing Canada. Anyways, I have to post a video of this. I felt like the Backstreet Boys in in the 90s, like walking off of like an airplane, and everyone just like losing their minds. But the reason I take off 2 points is because they are taking forever to heal. And believe me, I'm following the directions. Okay. And I'm also struggling, I'm cleaning them. I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to do. And I'm struggling how to figure out how to get these flat back earrings on and off, but also the normal ones that are easier to put on and off, like jab me in the head when I sleep, and I have to keep them in because they're still healing. So anyways, 2 points off for that. Otherwise, 10 out of 10 experience. So that was May. That was kind of the wackadoodle May stuff, which was great. Okay, next one. Going to a random alpaca farm in Wisconsin with the kids. I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. It was honestly really fun. We had a great time. I didn't know. It didn't say on the website or anything. We did have to drive like almost an hour, but the kids did pretty well. It was shearing day, which like, I know I live in Minnesota, so maybe a lot of my listeners are assuming that like I would just know like that I'm like a farm gal. I'm not. I grew up in like Minneapolis. There's not a lot of like alpaca farms in there. It was shearing day, which I didn't know. Just basically they like take these alpacas. They don't get like hurt or anything, but they have to kind of like chain them down and hold them still. And then like they like lay them down and kind of like chain them to the floor. I mean, I saw it. They didn't like look like they were in pain. And I think they do it every year. So think they were kind of used to it. And then they like give them like these haircuts. And we got there and they were like, oh, you're so lucky. It's like shearing day today. And I was like, oh, what's that? They're like, oh, like we're, trimming off all their wool. And they're like, but they kind of scream sometimes when they do it. So, just be mindful like with the kids or give them a heads up. And I was like, okay. So we were outside and you could like feed the alpacas and like the kids were having a great time. They had like other animals and stuff. Then we went to the barn when they were giving their haircuts. Thankfully, they weren't screaming. But then I had to explain why they were tying down these alpacas and giving them. Poppy kept being like, they're getting haircuts. And I was like, yeah, they are getting haircuts. And like, again, I don't think they were like in pain, but this is like a true like working farm. And that just for all of us, all three of us, me and the kids, we were kind of like, what's happening here to their haircuts? So that was like an eye-opening experience. So solid 8 out of 10 on that one. Getting a swing set for our yard, 10 out of 10. We've been living on that thing. And I don't know, I had a swing set in my backyard when I was little and I just spent like so much time on it. So we, finally just like got like a true like swing set on like a Memorial Day sale. And then we were like, okay, let's do it. And we've just been living on that thing. We've been spending, the weather's been a little weird this summer, but like totally 10 out of 10 with that. Also a 10 out of 10, I saw Frozen live at the Children's Theater in Minneapolis. And the reason I give this a 10 out of 10, Pork Chop loves the theater. Like, I think it's really cool. He loves the theater. More on that later. He's been getting into the arts and he got into photography, which I'm rating that one a little bit lower. I'll tell you why later. But when I went to go see Frozen live, there's something about like seeing children's like happiness and like the innocence of children that just like touches me so deeply. And I'm a very sensitive person. It's a blessing, but also sometimes a curse. And I'm not kidding. When I heard all of these little children voices and they're all these like girls dressed up as like Elsa and like Anna. Pork Chop loves Olaf. He thinks he's like so funny and loves the soundtrack. And this was just like my like do weird things in like Disney summer because the kids have just gotten really into like, we don't watch like a lot of movies, but we listen to a lot of music. And so, Spotify's always bringing up like Disney songs. We got really into different like Disney soundtracks, Frozen being one of them. But I honestly like hearing all of these little kids all singing Let It Go together. Like you could just hear it was like such a magical experience for them to like see it. And they were just like singing and I could like feel their joy. And it brought to it like my eyes got watery just like hearing their like just such like innocent like joy and like all singing this like little song together. And it just makes me so happy to like see little kids happy. So like would I have gone to see Frozen live by myself? No, but like Pork Chop loved it and all these little kids loved it. And it was just really fun to like see like these happy kids. We did a lot of plays actually. We saw a community production of like Madagascar. I feel like a lot of the kids that are like age appropriate for Pork Chop are usually like the ones that maybe were movies or, but we go to the theater when we can, like different community theaters. We saw Madagascar. Pork Chop thought that was fun too. But yeah, I'm giving Frozen live 10 out of 10 just because like seeing all these like happy kids and like their pure just like innocent like joy is really fun. And then Pork Chop and I got pizza after, and I love pizza. So 10 out of 10. Postcard cabins, also giving that a 10 out of 10. I love them. This is not by any means sponsored. I feel like I see a lot of like Instagram ads for them. I don't know if it's because I go and they're trying to get me to go again because I do. But Pork Chop and I did this the first time. The postcard cabins, they used to be called getaway cabins, I think, and now they're called postcard cabins. They're the ones that you see. There's like no Wi-Fi. It's almost like a little mini tiny house. And then the one side is like all glass. And then there's like a big bed. You've probably seen it on Instagram. They're really beautiful. We have some in Minnesota. We have like one in Minnesota, but I don't know how many they have, but they're kind of all over like the US. And Pork Chop and I went in the winter and it was super magical because it's kind of like in the woods and it had just snowed. And so it was really kind of like twinkly, like winter wonderland-y. And each cabin has a name. Ours was Nettie, and Pork Chop still talks about like the Nettie cabin. That's just what we call it. And like we had so much fun. And so then at the beginning of summer, when he started summer break, because this was his first, like completing his first year of like school, even though it was just like part-time preschool, we went and did a night at the postcard cabin and he loved it. It's just so much fun. We you can like, they have like a fire pit, just everything you need to have this little like cozy getaway. And we just had the best time. And it was awesome. 10 out of 10. I really recommend them. They're pretty reasonable. There's no Wi-Fi, which is nice. And you can bring your dog too. So I've really been enjoying them. So that's 10 out of 10. Doing themed curriculum with my kids. So my mom helped me with this one because she was a kindergarten teacher. She's retired now. And she is like, she would always do like a different theme. So she'd come over, she'd do like theme days, and like the kindergarten teacher in her just like came alive. And we would do like volcano themed week. Like she came over this week and we did volcanoes. And she'd be like, okay, I went to the library and I got these books and we're going to read these books about volcanoes. And then I got these safety glasses because you always have to be safe because we're going to build volcanoes. And then we'd get like vinegar and baking soda and food coloring and like these molds and then like make a volcano and then learn about like how volcanoes work and like new vocab words and things like that. And it's been so fun. Just so fun. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 only because 1 point off because a lot of times they do it when I'm at French class and I get FOMO because I'm like, I missed the volcano explosion. So I'm taking a point out for that. Otherwise, so amazing. Just like all these activities and something that's been really special this summer. I have another one in a little bit where we're coming up on a Bigfoot festival that I went to. But there's something so healing seeing like your parents be grandparents in this really special, like loving way. It's like really healing to your own inner child because I feel like they can show up in a different way than like they did when they were younger. And like my parents are phenomenal. But it's just like a different role. And I get it too, right? Like you can just show up and have fun for like a couple of hours and build volcanoes and then like go home. It's a really different role than like when you're the parents and, you know, you're there like 24/7. But it's just like really beautiful and healing and like loving for my inner child to see like my kids and then my mom like doing these fun like summer like science activities. So 9 out of 10, 1 point off because sometimes I'm jealous of what they get to do and I'm not there. We did a weekend family trip to Duluth, and I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. There was lots to do. We've done Duluth before. So many fun things to do. Great for a weekend. Couple points off for the long drive. The kids were very grumpy, bickering a lot. There were no blackout curtains where we stayed, so like no one slept. And I think we hit a milestone this summer where like Poppy is finally old enough to like truly kind of give pork chop attitude back and they can like properly bicker now. And it was a lot on this trip. So we're giving it a 7 out of 10 because of the lack of sleep, the long drive and the bickering. Otherwise, I really like going to Duluth. I think it's a really fun place to like do like a weekend trip. Zoos, I'm giving them an 8 out of 10. We did a lot of trips to the Minnesota Zoo and the Como Zoo. I personally prefer the Minnesota Zoo for my locals over the Como Zoo. I know that might be a little controversial, but we did a lot of trips to the zoo. The kids love animals. A couple points off because the Como Zoo is just like way too hot for me. I feel like it's just always like so hot in the summer. But yeah, really like the zoos. We went to this historical Minnesota farm. I think it's called like the Oliver Kelly farm or something. It's still like a small part is like a working farm, but it's mostly like this. They have the historical farmhouse. They have like the old farm equipment. Like people that are like dressed up will tell you about the different stuff, like the old barn. So a lot of it is like old. And if I'm remembering correctly, I couldn't read all the signs because I was like chasing kids around. But I think this farm was one of the first farms that really kind of started like modern agriculture in Minnesota. So it was kind of interesting going and learning. It was like very random, but we had a great time. It was beautiful. It was great. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10, 1 point off because like the kids kept just running in opposite directions. And that's one thing that's like when you go from one kid to two and you're just like, oh, they always just want to run in opposite directions. And then you're trying to chase both at the same time. And it's just like very chaotic. And there was like old farm equipment and they kept trying to like climb on it and then like fall off. So we're taking a point off for just like the safety and stress situation for me. Otherwise, really enjoyed it. And Pork Chop walked into the old house. He definitely is a little bit more sensitive. I think the veil's a little bit thin for him. And he just looks at the first person in there and goes, "Do ghosts live in this house?" And, and then the woman who's like cosplaying as this like old timey farmer who's supposed to like talk like an old like farmhand. And then we both kind of just like look at each other and she was like, "No, there aren't any ghosts here." And then Pork Chop was just like, I think there are. I think there's a lot of them. And then he turns to go into like the basement cellar and he goes, I think they probably live down here. And I was just like, okay. And yeah, so that was that. And then the other day, Pork Chop asked me what a seance was. I was like, where are you learning these things? But yeah, Pork Chop's been into ghosts this summer, which has been interesting. So, and he asked in the old farmhouse, and you know what? I'm not going to lie. I get it. I walked in there and I was like, yeah, I think there's probably some ghosts in here. And then the woman who was, cosplaying as the old time farmhand then was like, and then he kept asking everyone else that and about the ghosts. And then one of them finally told me, they're like, we're really not supposed to say that it's haunted here. And she's like, but I have heard some stuff. And then Pork Chop was like convinced with, he was fine with that answer. Okay, this were our first 0 out of 10. Finding an asbestos pad in my furnace. I tried to get the vents clean. It was like due to like get the vents cleaned in the house, which is like, again, as a homeowner and like our house is like, it's an old like starter home. It's small, it's old. Things are breaking all the time. Like if we move, whoever inherits this house next, like gets it next, everything will be new because it all broke while we lived here. Like the furnace, the main line, now this. Anyways, we try to get the vents clean and they're like, oh, we can't actually clean it because there's an asbestos pad in your furnace. And I was like, what is that? This is a straight 0 out of 10. Okay. It was 0 out of 10. It was fine. We don't have like any asbestos in our house. It just is like a lot of these old houses also have like either siding or tile that's made of asbestos. And as long as it's not like broken or like cracked or like busted open, like it's fine. It's just something that they used to use in like the 40s and 50s and 60s, I think. And our house is from like the 50s. And so like it was fine. It just, in terms of like the actual asbestos, but it was so expensive and so hard to find someone because you have to get someone that's like certified in like removal of this thing, like in this old house. And it just turned into it was like one small thing. And this pad was maybe 18 by 18 inches. Oh my gosh, the absolute, just the pandemonium after finding this asbestos pad to get it removed. So that was a straight 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. All right, the Minnesota Bigfoot Festival. I'm giving this one a 10 out of 10. I did originally take 2 points off because it was 3.5 hours away. It's in this place called like Remer, R-E-M-E-R, Minnesota. There's like a couple hundred people that live there, but it's like the home of Bigfoot. And like once a year, they hold a Bigfoot festival. But I'm going to add those 2 points back on because there are 2 Bigfoot lovers in my house. And that would be Pork Chop. Just really big into like ghosts and like Bigfoot this summer for Pork Chop and Disney. So interesting summer for us. Pork Chop and my dad. Like, I don't know anyone else who's into Bigfoot like that in my life. Like, I really don't. But except for those 2 men in my life. And so I was like, let's go to a Bigfoot festival. We made a thing of it. We went to like a hotel, spent the night. It was a whole thing. So 2 points off because it was like way up there, really far north. And like, it was definitely an interesting experience. If you're not like into Bigfoot that way, like, I'm not like poo-pooing Bigfoot. Okay. But like, would I personally choose to go to the Bigfoot Festival? No. I think there'd be, maybe other things that I would choose before that. But like, if you are into Bigfoot, I think you'd really be into this. So I took 2 points off originally, but then I'm adding those 2 points on because seeing Pork Chop and my dad bond over like their shared love for Bigfoot was honestly the sweetest, like just most wholesome thing. Like they were playing on a playground. And again, this is one of those moments that I felt like my inner child healed, like watching this like interaction. And like Pork Chop was on the playground and then my dad was like there. And then Pork Chop was like, Grandpa, you be Bigfoot, like come and get me. And then he was playing the game where it's like, we used to call it like, whatever, ground is lava, but it's like where, you can't get off the equipment. You have to kind of move on the playground and like not touch the ground. But they were playing because it was like Bigfoot was on the ground and he was going to get you. And then my dad was just like going around like pretending to be like Bigfoot. And then Pork Chop was having so much fun. And then all the kids were like watching the fun they were having. And then they were like, can we play? And then there were all these kids and like just seeing my dad. And like he was a pilot. And so he was gone like a lot. He's flying a lot. And so just seeing my dad like playing this like Bigfoot game with Pork Chop and then like these other like little kids in like this really cute like wholesome way was like it honestly just like touched my heart in such a deep way. And then this like older kid came over and he was like, hey, can I play? I'll be the Yeti. And then all the kids were like, it's Bigfoot and Yeti. And like, again, just like so sweet and like wholesome. And for like an hour, they all just played. And I just kind of like watched, and it was just so special. And like all these kids on the playground, and then my dad, and then this like teenage kid, and they were playing, and it was just really sweet and wholesome. So definitely 10 out of 10. And then my dad and Pork Chop got to bond over their like shared love of Bigfoot. So that was fun. We took a family trip out to Washington State, 9 out of 10. We just had a great trip. The kids really got closer. They enjoyed doing just like the most simple things, like throwing rocks into a river and saying like kerplunk when they went in there. We did go whale watching one day. We saw whales. I will say, love for whale genetics. That DNA runs deep. Pork Chop, also obsessed. He was asking all these questions. He was like, do humpback whales migrate all the way down to South America? And then the woman who was like the naturalist on board was just looking at him like, who is this kid? Pork Chop is just like, both my kids, honestly, so cool. But Pork Chop now, he's getting a little older, just like the coolest kid now that he's like really finding his voice and like sharing. We saw orcas and humpback whales. It was really cool. We went to Bainbridge Island. We had a really fun, magical day there. The kids got really hangry, and then we found like a whole baguette. We just went to the water, like hung out. It was just really fun. 9 out of 10. I'm just taking 1 point off because, family vacations, you spend a lot of time together and you sometimes get on each other's nerves. So just a point off for that, but overall, really great trip. Okay, this is very unlike me. However, putting platelets into my face, 5 out of 10. So for my birthday, I turned 35 this year. For my birthday, I thought, you know what? I'm going to treat myself to this facial. I don't do things like this. It was very pricey, but we have a babysitter that comes over sometimes. She has been getting, it's like I really don't know that much about the terms of this, but it's like the micro needling, right? Where they like numb you up and like punch holes in your face. And then it like just makes your skin look amazing. I don't know. My babysitter does it. Her skin is looking phenomenal. And I'm like, what are you doing to your face? She's like, I do this micro needling. And so then a friend of mine the place that she works, because she's a nurse, they do this, but they do it where they like take your platelets. This is the point where hopefully all the people, when I said there's absolutely no meditation here, we're literally just going to hang out and talk about the crazy things this summer. This is absolutely the point in which I've lost them. And they're like, I don't hear about you getting microneedling and trying to put platelets back into your face. I've absolutely lost them at this point. But honestly, I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. I thought about not sharing this one because it's just like so not like mindful in minutes at all. But I give it a 5 out of 10. And I feel like you see people online being like, come get microneedling with me. And I always think like, is it worth it? Is it worth it? I don't know. So anyways, so they numb your face. They like take like a skin pen. They like punch these little holes in your face. And then before you do that, they draw your blood and they spin it. They get the platelets. It's like a whole thing. There's like, what do they call it? The blood, not a hematologist. That's a blood doctor. The person who draws the blood. I'm sure everyone listening is like screaming, I'll think of it later. But anyways, they have one of those, like a phlebotomist. They come and they draw the blood and then they spin it. They get the platelets. They do the skin pen and then they put the platelets back in. It's supposed to be like, if you're going to do microneedling, it's supposed to be like the one to do. And my friend who works here is like, no, this is like the thing. You're turning 35, like treat yourself to this. I was like, okay. So I did. Didn't really hurt. They numb you. Like, honestly, I didn't think it hurt at all. So like 0 out of 10 for pain and discomfort. But the whole process, it was kind of a lot. It was very expensive. I don't usually do stuff like this. And so I did have some like sticker shock, and I feel like it didn't really make that big of a difference. They did said I had to do it 3 times, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this 3 times. I certainly don't think I can afford this 3 times. So I might just from here on out, like start to just age gracefully after that experience. But I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, like 5 out of 10. It was like an interesting experience. It was like a treat to I really don't treat myself like that. But I thought for my 35th birthday, why not? Didn't hurt at all. So if you're thinking about doing it, maybe you do need to get all 3. But the people who get the microneedling, I know a handful of people who do it and like they swear by it. So maybe it's just because I only did the one, but 5 out of 10. Also 5 out of 10, organizing my basement. I'll keep this one simple. So glad I did it. Hated the process. 5 out of 10. I did a sugar, I don't love the word detox. I cut out sugar and processed foods and dairy for 18 days. I was going to do it for 3 weeks, but then I was hosting a baby shower and And I just thought like I'll kind of do up until the baby shower and then like have some of the food there. I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. 2 points off for the days that I was like an absolute grump troll. 1 point off because I got really bored eating. I was eating a lot of the same things, but honestly, I feel amazing. I'm really glad I did it. There was a couple days where I was grumpy. I did it because I felt like as I was dealing with like stress and things like that, my energy was a little bit lower. I just found myself really reaching for like a lot of sugar, like more processed stuff. It was, a busy summer and I felt like I was just eating kind of out of convenience and not being as mindful as to like what I'm putting into my body. And for me, this was like a good way to kind of reevaluate, reset, kind of highlight a lot of those places where I was just eating out of convenience and not paying attention to like nutrition and things like that. But I give it a 7 out of 10. I'm really happy I did it. I would definitely do it again. I just got kind of bored because for almost 3 weeks I was eating a lot of the same stuff, mostly because I was home with the kids most of the summer and it was really busy and I find it hard to like cook and meal prep. So like I would meal prep, but I would just kind of eat a lot of the same stuff. So I just got bored. And then there were a couple of days, I would say days like 2 through 5 or 2 through 6. I was a grumpy, angry troll. 100% I was. So I'm going to take a couple points off for those days. Otherwise, felt great. Dress up days, 8.5 out of 10. The kids have gotten so into dress up. I love it. Pirates, Maui, the demigod of wind and sea, Princess Merida. We had this, which they made me be Princess Merida, and we had this wig that was a Haggard wig. So like I looked like Merida, but any of my Disney fans out there, Merida, the Scottish princess, she like, is she a princess? Is she Pixar? I don't know. But she has this like big wild like red hair. Anyways, they would make me dress up like Haggard and call me like Merida. Doctors, butterflies, like you name it, really into dress up. I don't know. It's just really fun. I love doing that as a kid. And this summer I've been having a great time kind of tapping back into like my inner child and just doing things like that. And like Pork Chop will be Maui, demigod of wind and sea. And then he'll be like, Mom, you can be Moana. And then he always has Poppy be like either the villain. This is so sad. Either the villain or like the animal sidekick. So he'll be like, anyone who hasn't seen Moana, this means nothing to you. Like my other moms out there or like babysitters, you know what I'm about to say. So he'd get to be Maui, I would be Moana, and then Poppy would have to be, she's always Pua. And then we'd play like Little Mermaid. So I would be Ariel, Pork Chop would be Flounder, and then Poppy would be Ursula. It was always like, you'd always make her like the villain or like the animal sidekick. I'm like, okay, buddy, tell me how you really feel about your sibling. But dress up days, love it. 8.5 out of 10. Couple points off, just, I'm like, how many times do I have to put on this Haggard wig and you guys pretend that I'm Merida, this Scottish princess? Pork Chop has really gotten into photography, this most recent. I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. I love his creative endeavors. I love it. However, the 9,000 artful pictures, I'll put this in like the carousel, and videos of his little mini Lightning McQueen cars on my phone. Every time I turn my back, because he's figured out how you can like, how you can like look at the iPhone and then like push the camera button. You can get into the camera even without locking the phone. He's like an evil genius. You know what? Every time I open my camera roll and there are like 9,000 of these artful pictures of Lightning McQueen's tire, it's getting a little old, buddy. Okay? It is getting a little old. He waits until I'm distracted because like Mila's barking or like Poppy needs something, and he takes that phone and there's like these quote artful like videos and like and these photos, and I'm like, I don't want to go through and delete all of it. It's getting a little old. Okay. I love his creative endeavors. I love him dabbling in the arts. This one, it's only been hot for a couple of weeks. It's already getting old. So 6 out of 10. Yeah, that's it, because that's the most recent one. This coming weekend, I think I'm going to take Pork Chop to see Beauty and the Beast. Again, he loves the theater. And I think at the end of the summer, we're going to do a cave week. So we're going to learn about caves, the science, and do activities, and then visit a local cave. And I anticipate that one being really fun. And then the summer is over. So those are all of the most random things that I did this summer, just totally because I can. And I wanted to be present with my children. I wanted to sit and tap into my own inner child and my rating of all of them. So a couple of lessons that I learned. Big one has been, the big one has been just if I found myself in a situation where I knew I had a finite amount of time on earth and with my kids, what would I do differently? It sounds so cliche, but it is just be more present. If they want to put a Haggard wig on me, it brings them so much joy to see me walking around in that crazy wig and me pretending being a Scottish princess, like if that makes their hearts happy, I'm doing it. And it makes my heart happy too. Another one has been reflecting on what am I in such a rush for? Or what are we in such a rush for? I found myself just being like, what's the rush? What's the rush? Like for where? Where are we going and why? I find myself sometimes being in this like rush to kind of like be done or to move on to the next thing. But then I found myself pausing and being like, but why? Like what's the rush? I mean, sometimes there's a rush because like, okay, we have this appointment. We have to get there on time for this appointment. But like if we're just hanging at the splash pad and maybe I'm just getting a little bored, like, okay, the splash pad's getting a little bit old, but then it's like, but what's the rush? Like why? And just asking myself that question, what's the rush? What am I rushing off to do next and why? That's been a really just a profound thing. So maybe the next time you find yourself, if you want to do these things, you find yourself thinking like, you're rushing off to the next thing, being like, but why? Is there really something that I need to be there next? Or am I just rushing to rush? Or like what's happening there? It's been a really interesting thing for me to reflect on during quiet contemplation. Shoulds. I had this moment maybe about a month ago. I was listening to this like audiobook. I'm not going to give the title because I felt so. There are parts that I liked, but then there are parts when I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. So I was just listening to an audiobook. It was just about kind of like lowering some demands for your kids and like having realistic expectations for kids, like age appropriate ones, things like that. Didn't love the whole book, but there was one part that stuck with me. And it was talking about how sometimes we have expectations for our kids and it's so important to ask why and then to analyze that. So for example, like if it's really important to you that kids sit and eat their meals at the table, which is one we've kind of, Pork Chop's a 4-year-old boy, like he's on the move. Sometimes it's hard to get him to just sit there and like eat a meal. And this was bugging me. And so I was reading this book or listening to this book and it was just like, you know what? When you find yourself having that resistance, it's like ask yourself, this is an expectation that I have, but why? And dig that layer deeper. It's like, why? And then why is that so important to me? And it'll highlight a lot. And for me, it came up with just like, I don't know, that's what, quote, like good kids do. Then I was like, is that really what good kids do? And it opens up this opportunity to kind of challenge these expectations and these different beliefs and just ask yourself, like, where does it come from and why is it so important to me? And that was a really powerful exercise. And then I was just driving, not even really thinking about this. And I was driving and I was thinking about all these things that I should be doing, right? I should be doing this. Because I will say one thing that was hard for me when I sort of took a back seat to working for 2 months is like, not only do I love what I do, but I'm always like, oh, I should be doing this or I could be doing that. Or like, I should do a summer challenge or I should do a summer retreat. I should do this thing. I should do that thing. And I found myself just being like, and it just hit me. And it was like, shoulds are just unmet expectations for ourselves. It's like when you're saying you should, it's the same concept of like there's an expectation that you have for yourself that you're not meeting and that's what's bothering you. And shoulds are just these unmet expectations. And then asking yourself, would I have the same expectation for someone else? 9 times out of 10, it's like, no, with these should things, right? It's just these unrealistic expectations that I've set for myself that I need to unpack. And I'm just saying, I should do this, I should do that. When really I'm just expressing a disappointment in myself for not meeting unrealistic expectations. Maybe that doesn't resonate with anyone else, but it was really profound for me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's what these shoulds, they're just, I'm being hard on myself because I'm not meeting unrealistic expectations that I've just set for myself. And then digging deeper, why do I have this expectation? Why is it so important to me? It really helped me unpack a lot. And it's helped me reduce these like, oh, I should do this, I should do that, I should do this. It's really, really helped. Another thing, also asking myself like, would I have these expectations for other people? And the answer is probably no. And then being like, so why do I have it for myself? It was helpful for me. And then sometimes realizing you just hurt. It's not pleasant, but it is a reality. And I think sometimes it's important to sit in that hurt or to sit in those feelings and you'll learn a lot. And sometimes you just feel your feelings. And it's something that I've also, when, Pork Chop or Poppy have been having big feelings and asking them like, would you like me to do something or can I do this for you? Or would you like to just feel your feelings? And sometimes I'll just say, I just want to feel my feelings. Like, okay. And then giving them space to do that, also giving myself space to do the same. I'm paying attention to your body. How is your body feeling? How is it reacting to your here and now? This tells you a lot. I do this often with my meditation practice, asking myself, how does my body feel? Giving myself a little bit of time to answer that. What's happening in my mind and what's happening in my heart? So checking into those 3 things has been really helpful for me. And then also, there's two things. One is asking myself, like, or just reminding myself what we all crave so deeply. And I've really been reminded of this by my kids. What we really crave so deeply from one another is just someone's undivided attention and invitation to join them in the moment they're experiencing. And I think that that's something that we can expand well beyond just children, our interactions with one another, our friendships, our relationships, our family. And then a secondary thing that just kind of came up last night, I was thinking, and it's a little bit of an exercise I've been doing, and I've been reflecting on the people that I'm closest to in my life that I feel the most emotionally safe with. Why do I feel that way? What is it that they are doing that makes me feel that way? And making a list, right? It's, they put down their phone when we talk. They are excited about, they share excitement in what I'm excited about. They are really good listeners. They, care about what's happening in my life. They make me feel like I can just be who I am and just freely. And making these lists, big long list of things that other people do to really make me feel connected, emotionally safe, seen by other people. Taking that list and then saying, okay, what of these things can I start doing for others? To connect with my children, to connect with my husband, to connect with my family members, whatever it is. And that was a really powerful exercise for me to just look at that and have that list and then be like, how can I do these things for others to deepen the connections that I have with those around me? So that is it. That is the most probably personal and random Mindful Minutes episode ever. That's all I have. Maybe if you're listening in Spotify, maybe in the comments, let me know something funny you did this summer. I love to read those, and I love to know like what people are doing, or if you want to, like, on Apple, it's kind of hard because you can't do comments, but like leave a review or something. Tell me about something fun you did. I love that. And thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me do what I do and being here, whether, there's really no learning or meditation here, just hanging out, sharing what's been on my heart and my mind lately. And, if you're listening to this, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I hope that you had a beautiful summer. And that's it. I'm going to say bye now. Also, thanks for listening about the thing with my cousin. That was tough to share, but I really appreciate you listening to that. And it really was kind of a catalyst for how my summer was formed. Coming up with the rest of this month, we're going back to regular Mindful Minutes programming after this. I won't be, ranking other things I've been doing, but thank you for being here. And I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you on Sunday for a meditation.